There we are, almost bang on time. Yes, we are live. Welcome everyone to the Coin Bureau podcast channel. That's what this channel is called now. It used to be called More Coin Bureau, but we've renamed it to Coin Bureau Podcast. So welcome everyone, and welcome to another episode of NFA Live. I am joined by Ben once again. Hello, Ben. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How's it going? Thanks for having me here, by the way.
Thanks for joining, Ben. It's lovely to see you. And Rob as well from Digital Asset News. Rob, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Again, thanks for having the show. This should be a good one.
I think so. Folks, anyone watching, if you aren't already subscribed to Ben and Rob, then you will find links in order to do that, to rectify that in the description. I highly recommend that you do. Yes, thanks for joining, gentlemen. So today there's a few things I wanted to talk about, a few questions I wanted to pick your brains on. But again, to people watching, if you have any particular questions that you'd like to ask Ben, Rob, or God forbid, even myself, then do feel free to put them in the comments as well. And then we will try and get round to answering some of those either towards the end of the stream or maybe halfway through, depending on how we're doing. But yes, please do drop any questions you might have in the comments, along with all the regular comments, abuse, etc. Yeah, well, let's crack on. Let's start with the first question. The first thing I wanted to ask is just a sort of general, what the F is going on? Bitcoin is sort of stubbornly below 90K. Meanwhile, gold is flying again. So my question to you guys is, do you feel this is likely to continue? What would you say to someone holding alts right now who's maybe considering a pivot into precious metals or maybe something different? Rob, can I start with you on this one?
Absolutely. Let me share my screen because it's kind of involved, I would say, for this one. And then Ben can get super involved with the Japan yield and the nonsense that's going on over there. So first of all, why is this happening and what's going on? It's anybody's guess. But I will say, I do like looking at this website. I don't know if you've heard of it, the one from Ben's Into the Cryptoverse. These moving averages, it seems like we are kind of bouncing around this 100-week moving average. But I think it feels like there's like a self-fulfilling prophecy for the 4-year cycle people like myself, where we're just kind of expecting things to keep going down until we hit this 200-week, and that's at 57,000. I don't know what's going to happen, but the whole thing with gold and macroeconomics and the different things that are going on in the world, it makes you take a look real hard at, say, like gold. And gold and silver are acting exactly how they're supposed to, which is a risk-off asset. And you can take a look. I mean, this is looking pretty risk-offy as we've got a lot of uncertainty in the world, especially with what's going on with Trump and Greenland and Davos and the World Economic Forum, macroeconomics and everything itself. And you can take a look at silver. It's the same thing. I mean, this is exactly how it's supposed to act. And we know that with Bitcoin, it's not. I mean, it's just right here. I still believe it's a long-term store of value, but even if we price things in, like right now I have it priced into gold, we can see that, Bitcoin is kind of lagging, and it's not any fault of that. It's pretty much how it is. Now, if we go back 2015, 2016, 2017, we can see that, yeah, it's a long-term store of value, but for like a risk off, it's really not responding that way. And I just think that we have to be cognizant of that as we move forward. And then to get to your last question, which is, what about altcoins? What do we have what should we be telling people? This is the does it bleed section. I take a look at this every so often because I've got too many alts. I'll be honest with you. And 80% of my bag is Bitcoin because my alts have been bleeding so badly. And that's just the honest truth. Anyone want to take a guess at which one this is that I'm holding up here for altcoins? Because there's some that do okay. Guesstimations. Which one do you think this is?
Gosh, so it's 9 years old at least. Is this some alt layer one perhaps?
Yeah. It's a proof of work.
Oh, it's a proof of work. Litecoin?
Close.
Ooh, Doge? Oh, is it Doge? Is Doge proof of work?
Doge is still awesome, but I will say like this is when I talk about altcoins, I just want to say like this is Zcash.
Ooh.
So when we take a look at this, but you have to understand like some of these alts that people talk about, they're like, well, mine's going to be awesome. Mine's going to be awesome. And there's always this thing about, well, privacy is going to win out. And the narrative makes a lot of sense, especially with what we're seeing with the governments and especially over in the EU, for Pete's sakes. But Zcash didn't really bounce off until like a year ago. And it went up like almost 700%. So when people are looking at this and they think, well, my alt's going to do well. If you have some type of registry which says like, I believe in this narrative, I believe in this, and you should go with that narrative for altcoins. But I'm just going to tell you, like, there's going to be some Zcashes out there which don't do much for years. And then all of a sudden, just because of a bunch of, I hate to say this, bunch of VCs pumping it up, and it does have fundamentals. It's great. I mean, for privacy and everything we talked about. But for this one, there's a ton of different projects that aren't doing so great. And you can just take a look. I'm going to price everything in Bitcoin over on CoinGecko. Over 30 days, most things are down, but there's some things that do okay, like Solana and Tron. I've always said, like, I think the best will win. Binance, Ethereum, Solana, Tron. But you get stuff like Monero, privacy, Leo, token, Canton, Sui, just a little bit. But of course, if you go back, you'll see which ones actually bleed. And I just wanted to bring this up because like there's some altcoins that'll do well, but there's gonna be so few that are gonna actually make it. And you really gotta dive into it. Because if not, I'd say 99% are gonna fail. I mean, that's what everybody is, the consensus. So I will say, Guy, just to give you guys a shout, see that Canton there, over 30 days, 70%? You know who talked about that? And the only reason I knew about it was because of this, because you talked about this just in December. So again, like when I see all these things going on and what's happening, it's anybody's guess. Another shout out to you. This one for the finance was a great one. I actually was laughing when you were talking about the Greenland deal. And then just last piece, and I swear to God, I'll shut up. But this Greenland deal looks like it's actually might go through. I know people were asking like, well, Trump's a moron because all he had to do was stop making this deal and just keep going with what it is. But it's radically different than what's happening. I mean, it used to be like it says here, leased bases, mineral control, but that was all by the government and there was a renewable timeline. And now what the thing that's been on the table is you get sovereign pockets, little places for Greenland. You get mineral control, indefinite timeline, meaning that America's going to be in there. And it's supposed to be good for blocking influence. So I know like people will say like this bill does, or this negotiation doesn't make sense. It makes sense. And hopefully it'll kind of calm the fears of the market. We can move forward. The big question though is what do the people in Greenland think? It seems like they're like, hey, were we involved in this? Or was it just the Trump and the EU? It seems like we got screwed over. Anyhow, that was my very long-winded rationale for why the markets are doing what they're doing.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it looks like the Greenland situation is sort of calming a bit, doesn't it? Because I mean, you know, I think there's a sort of general acceptance that Trump will get kind of what he wants on it. It's just, I guess we're in that period of uncertainty where, you know, we just don't know how that pans out. You know, hopefully that is in the form of agreements, you know, between states and obviously with the involvement of the people of Greenland as well. Rather than, you know, US troops landing there, which I think, you know, most people are sort of like, I'm not really sure we want to see that. But let's see. Yeah. But it's uncertainty, isn't it? It's uncertainty.
It always is uncertainty. Yeah. Markets don't like ambiguity.
Yeah. Ben, same question to you. What do you think this situation with the likes of gold and silver, with precious metals outperforming, is likely to continue?
Yeah. Because not, I mean, I think that metals will, I mean, like, I do think metals will have a correction at some point the first half of this year. Normally, if you look at like throughout all of history, a lot of times the metals like gold and silver will find some top between like January and April or something like that. And then they'll find a low in the third quarter of the year. So I'm kind of expecting something like that. But I think that whenever metals do correct, I think that there's a good chance that like risk assets will correct harder. So this is like what I used to talk about with altcoins, when I would say like, all right, well, when Bitcoin goes up, it then breaks altcoins off of their Bitcoin support levels, like, right? So like Bitcoin will go up a lot, and then the altcoins valuation against Bitcoin will drop below some support level. And then when Bitcoin then drops, the altcoin has nowhere to hide because it already lost support on the levels because it couldn't keep up with Bitcoin in the bull market. So then it just drops too when Bitcoin drops. And that's why over the last like 4 years, we saw Bitcoin do really, really well. And then we just saw altcoins bleed to Bitcoin for like 4 years in a row. So I think the same thing now is kind of like, we're like that has happened. And because crypto's further up the risk curve, I think that took place first. But now I think we're in the place where like gold, like the rallies by gold, the higher risk assets like crypto are not able to keep up with it. And so like cryptocurrencies are breaking down on their gold valuations, as weird as that sounds. And the S&P is breaking down on its gold valuation, the same valuation that it broke down against back in the 1970s. So the issue, though, is if it is breaking down, I mean, there's a chance it's a fake out. I think it's a little too premature to say. But if it is breaking, if the stock market is breaking down against gold, which it kind of looks like it might be, what normally happens is that gold will then top out within a few months. The stock, like the risk assets, then go down, and then risk assets will then bottom when gold does. The problem for crypto is that if risk assets bottom when gold does, gold hasn't even started going down yet. So that means that like there still could be pain for crypto as long as gold keeps going up, and then the pain for crypto could continue when gold starts going down, and then the pain for crypto will likely be over when gold then bottoms. So that's kind of, it's the same idea that I said for Bitcoin like all those years ago. It's like Bitcoin, it's and it still is true, right? Like Bitcoin's a better hold than altcoins, because altcoins will bleed no matter the direction of Bitcoin USD. Like if Bitcoin goes up, alts bleed. If Bitcoin goes down, alts bleed. Now you could argue that altcoins will bleed against gold no matter the direction of gold. So like I'm not saying that you need to go FOMO into gold right now, but what I am saying is that like if you gave me $1,000 and told me like you have to put it in either this random altcoin or gold, I would still put it in gold. Not because I think that gold can't have a correction, but it's just whenever the correction happens, gold will still likely hold up better than the altcoin. So I think that trend is going to continue for probably until the third or fourth quarter of this year. So that's what I think. So I still think metals generally are better than altcoins. I mean, if you look at the silver chart, obviously I'm not, you don't need to go FOMO into silver after it's rallied as much as it has, but you know, it just goes to show, like, I feel like for the last several months, people keep saying like, oh, if you buy metals, you're buying the top, right? And then a few weeks later, if you buy metals, you're buying the top. And then a few weeks later, if you buy metals, you're buying the top. And so they keep buying altcoins instead, thinking that they're going to be able to time the transition, a rotation from metals to altcoins. But as I've said before, if they were unable to capture the bull market in metals completely, which many people were unable to do so, like why should they be so confident that they can time the rotation out of metals if they couldn't time the rotation into it? You know? So I do think a lot of people are very overconfident a lot of times, like in thinking they know when these big narrative shifts are going to happen. But oftentimes momentum is very powerful, and you're better off just assuming the trend continues until the market spends months telling you otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, the metals still seem to have a fair bit of narrative weight behind them. I think, you know, you've got central banks continuing to buy gold. You've got gold as a hedge against this global uncertainty that we were talking about at the moment. Then you factor in silver, obviously, as a beta play on gold, but also increasingly industrial usage as well. I wouldn't want to be trying to call the top for precious metals, you know, for the likes of gold and silver, to say nothing of copper or platinum or anything else. It seems like they have that narrative behind them.
Yeah, I gotta agree.
Okay. Let's. So I've asked you what was going on with sort of with gold, with Bitcoin, etc. I also want to get your thoughts on what's going on with Japan at the moment, because we've got rates on Japanese government bonds currently skyrocketing. Many people believe that actually it might be Japan rather than uncertainty around Greenland or anywhere else that's actually driving risk-off sentiment at the moment. Japan's prime minister has called a snap election for early next month, so I think within the next couple of weeks or so, seeking a mandate to sort of combat inflation there. So we could perhaps be seeing the return of the breakdown of the yen carry trade. I just want to very quickly get your thoughts on this. Is Japan something that either of you have been sort of paying much attention to? Do you think this is something that we should be kind of worried about, or is Japan just always something kind of lurking in the background? Rob, can I ask you first, and then we'll go to Ben?
Sure. I think I follow very little, but I think we've heard about this for the last 3, 4, 6 months or so. And I understand that Japan has $1.1 trillion in treasuries from the United States. Mm-hmm. And as we see, looking like at the 10-year Japanese treasuries, we're at 2.2%, somewhere around there. And I think for the 10-year treasury for the United States, it's 4.2 as well. So, I mean, it's better for Japan to be zero, what's it been for so long. So I understand the whole prospect of, I think the term was repatriatism, something like that, where Japanese people, Japanese investors, they actually flow their money back into the treasuries because they can put the money back into the country itself. And if they do that, if they start to sell off, I mean, even a fraction of those $1.1 trillion in treasuries in the United States, they say that's going to be a pretty big thing. And it could actually blow everything up. But that's like what Ben was talking about. It seems like we've always got these things going on in the background constantly. So it's something that I watch, but it seems like this keeps happening, and we're waiting for the big disaster to happen, and who knows if it will. This is more like a Ben question.
Well, in that case, I will pass it directly over to Ben, because yes, well, thank you for that, Rob. I'm keen to hear both your thoughts on this, because Japan does seem to be something that's kind of long been background noise, and it kind of occasionally bubbles up and screws us over a bit. Ben, is Japan something that you pay much attention to from a sort of broader macro point of view? Is it something we should be worried about?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we've talked about before. I think even on NFA Live, basically every time the Bank of Japan's like raising rates, we've seen a lot of times we'll see crypto kind of weak around the time of the rate hike. I mean, in this case, you're just looking at the 2-year yield in Japan. This is what the 10-year yield looks like, right? So, you could argue their economy's been kind of heating up a little bit, right? Like, the market's probably more worried about growth, I guess, than a recession right now over in Japan. You also have to remember that, like, when a lot of banks were raising rates back in 2023 and 2024, Japan was not. So if you go look at interest rates in Japan, you'll see that the Bank of Japan didn't even raise rates until 2024, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas the Fed was raising in 2022 and 2023. And by the time we got to like late 2024, the Fed was cutting rates, not raising rates. So it seems like Japan's kind of on a slightly different business cycle, I guess. But what's interesting is when you look at like all of these rate hikes by Japan, it tends to correspond to sell-offs in crypto, right? Like there's been a lot of weakness around the same times that you've had these rate hikes, and then what Bitcoin does, just kind of like following the rate hike. So that kind of hasn't really changed. But the bigger thing I think you have to look at is, of course, the unwind of the carry trade. A lot of people in the West will, borrow money over there because it's a lot cheaper, like cash. It's just a lot cheaper to do so. And so when now you basically have the Fed lowering rates and the Bank of Japan raising rates. So the delta between those two, this is what the delta looks like. So there's a 3% difference between the Fed funds rate and Japan interest rates, right? Because Japan's at 0.75, the Fed's at 3.75. So right now we're at 3 is the delta. Now, what you'll notice is that every time, not every time, but a lot of the times when this thing starts going down, these green shaded regions are in fact recessions, right? So usually with it going down, it's not a good thing. Now, are there times where it has gone down and we did not have a recession? Yeah, you can see that happened in the 80s. But even then, in 1987, the stock market dropped like 35%. It just wasn't classified as a recession. But I think you have to look at this stuff and realize that one of the reasons why there could be weakness is because of the unwind of the carry trade. And when you see, the long end of the long end of the curve in Japan going higher, it makes it seem like the Bank of Japan is going to keep raising rates. I think they're probably going to raise 2 or 3 times this year. They'll probably get up to like 1.25% or 1.5% by the end of the year, if I had to guess. They've already talked about an April rate hike not being ruled out, I think, at this moment. So I think that is kind of like why things are, like why the markets are a little bit jittery, especially like the more riskier markets. And if you think back to like the biggest crash that Bitcoin had in the last bull market from like 2023 through 2025, the biggest crash that it had was back in August of 2024, I believe. I think a lot of you guys remember that. And Bitcoin dropped it dropped 30%, but it happened really quickly, right? Really quickly from that local high. I mean, from the much higher level, it was like more like 33.5%. But one of the reasons why it dropped so much in that wick right here, like one of the reasons why the market sold off so aggressively, it was because the Bank of Japan was raising rates. They raised their rates in July, the very end of July. So Bitcoin was selling off, but also the Fed was cutting rates. Now, it wasn't just because the Fed cut rates. It was because if you remember back in late 2024, there was a lot of recession fears, right? Like the SOMRL recession indicator had just triggered. The US unemployment rate had just spiked to 4.3%. It was later revised down to 4.2, but it spiked to 4.3. It triggered the SOMRL. A lot of people were really fearful of a recession. So you could argue the reason it dropped that much was because of the delta, right? The Bank of Japan was raising rates. But then if you looked at the CME futures, they were expecting a ton of rate cuts because people thought a recession was happening, So that would have led to this drastic unwind of the carry trade. But then it turned out the recession fears were premature. We didn't need all those rate cuts. The Bank of Japan didn't raise rates as aggressively as people thought they would, and so then the market, continued higher. But I think at this point, we're certainly getting further into this, and I think the thing right now that's kind of difficult is basically you have the Fed that people want them to lower rates, but they're not really expected to lower rates that much more this year. Even though Jerome Powell is likely going to be replaced as chair, if you look at the curve, there's still only the market basically just thinks the Fed's going to cut one more time this year and that they're going to do it in June. So basically, the playbook will be replace Powell in May, cut rates in June. And then I think we're going to be in a situation where we're going to realize, hey, we might not be able to just keep cutting rates as aggressively as we want to. So I think that could also be kind of the narrative as well, as what if we're actually closer to the end of the rate cutting cycle than people think. The only way we're not close to the end is if we immediately tip over into a recession, right? Because if we go into recession, then they'll cut rates. But if we avoid a recession, then we're probably really, really close to the end of this cutting cycle. So that also could be a narrative that's playing into some of the weakness that we've seen in crypto.
Yeah. And of course, I guess a lot of people perhaps mistakenly thinking that certainly as far as the Fed is concerned, they want to eventually go back to zero, but the sort of zero interest rates that we had a few years ago. But actually, that's probably fairly unlikely. you would think. Those days of zero interest rates are long past and probably won't come back for a long time, if at all.
Yeah, I think it does. Like yield, I mean, it does look structurally like it's going higher, right? Like yields look like they want to go higher. I feel like they were going lower for decades, and now they might start going up for a little while.
Yeah.
I mean, even
thank you, gentlemen.
The 10-year yield in the US continues to go up, right? Yeah, like it's been spiking recently. And also the 30-year too. Like the 30-year didn't the 30-year spike sometime recently? Like, I mean, the 30-year is at 4.8%, And there's a lot of people that thought that cutting rates would make the 30-year go down, right? I mean, that's not true. The Fed does not directly control the long end, so.
Yeah, only the short. Okay, well, thank you for that, gentlemen. So, we need to watch the Fed, but we also need to be aware of what the Bank of Japan is doing as well, because that could get interesting again. And when you consider the sheer amount of debt, I mean, obviously not as much as the US, but certainly relative to GDP, that Japan is sitting on, that's where things get really scary. Okay, speaking of scary, or maybe not so much scary, but perhaps disappointing, should we say, the Clarity Act, this big sort of piece of crypto market legislation that a lot of people were hoping was going to be passed soon, has hit some major roadblocks. Coinbase basically torpedoed it last week, much to the dismay of the White House. And a lot of other people in the crypto industry were not too happy about it as well. So Brian Armstrong, Coinbase CEO, basically said that they didn't like the bill for various reasons, and he said that no bill is better than a bad bill. So I just want to see from you guys, do you agree with him on that? Do you think that was the right call to make? I mean, I know this is a bit of a fraught topic, but it seems to have very much divided the crypto community. So I was just curious to see how you guys felt about it. Rob, can I start with you on this one? How do you feel that Brian Armstrong was doing the right thing there, or do you think he kind of needlessly torpedoed this bill just as there was a chance it was going to go through? How did you read it?
I read it. Well, when I first heard what Brian said, I agree with him totally, because if everybody knows about the government, they can only do so many things and then put the actual bill into effect. And then usually when we go back to it to revise it, it's like, we already got this one. So if you want to revise it, good luck. And when government puts things in place, especially like government, I mean, President Reagan said it perfectly. When a government job comes into place, it usually doesn't go away. It's a permanent type of structure. So these types of bills that are coming in, I agree with Brian for what he says. And there was a lot of things that were, left to be desired. And we talked about this, I think, last week, where ban on the stablecoin yield, that was a problem, because, I mean, if you're going to put your money or your dollars that's denominated into stablecoin, which is backed 1-to-1, which is not what banks are doing, because they do fractional reserve lending. If you're going to do that and put it in a bank, you should be able to gain yield from that. I mean, the American people should actually have that. And that should be how it is around the world, quite honestly. Now, they have money market accounts and things like that, but I mean, just for a regular person, for their checking account, they should. And then, of course, the DeFi regulations, they're going to want to make the, like a Uniswap to do a KYC AML. They want to ban tokenized equities. I know there was a little bit of debate about that, but it looks like they do not want that. And then expansion of the SEC authority, which was also a problem. We saw that last time with Gary Gensler, regulation by enforcement. So I agree with Brian, but there was one caveat, and it was something I didn't think about, which was David Sachs did an interview with CNBC. And of course, he is the AI and crypto czar for President Trump administration. And he made a good point. He said, he goes, if we can get this over the line and actually have banks come in, he goes, we're going to have to, back and forth. That's negotiations. Everybody feels like they're going to get screwed a little bit when they go through this. But if we can just get the banks over the finish line and we can get crypto into what it wants, we're not going to get everything. But once the banks come in, they say, we can do this and we can move things around a little bit more, and we can actually make things a little bit more easier and cheaper and faster for our customers. Maybe this is good for us. And he says, and he's right. He goes, the ones that innovate are the ones that are going to make it. The ones that don't are going to fall behind. And I always say, I've said this before, I'll say it again. The banks are going to get blockbustered. The ones that don't come forward and actually make this better for their customers are going to lose their customers. It's so much easier to move back before, when I was doing this. So now but with David Sachs saying that, I'm on the fence. Let's see what they can do. But really, what's going to come down to is just negotiations. Someone's going to say you get this, someone's going to say that. Everybody's going to feel like they got screwed a little bit, and they'll get the bill passed, and no one will be happy.
That's when you know it's been a success, when literally no one is happy with how it turns out. That's when you know you've hit the nail on the head. Ben, how did you feel about this? Have you been following the Clarity Act very much? I mean, were you kind of on Brian Armstrong's side of this, or do you think they should be sort of forging ahead to try and get this thing hammered out?
I haven't been following it really at all, but I'll pretend to be.
That's the spirit.
We can be honest here, right?
Yes, we can.
I'm amongst friends. No, I haven't really followed it that much. I mean, to be completely honest, I think I actually preferred crypto before all the governments got involved. Seems like after all these governments got involved with everything, it just kind of messed everything up. I think long term, all this stuff is probably a bullish thing, but it's like I think it's like thematic ETFs, right? Like everyone always thinks thematic ETFs are like the way to go, and like you buy a thematic ETF because you're really bullish on a very specific industry. But usually by the time the thematic ETFs launch, like most of the gains for the asset class within the next few years are gone, because it took the interest in the first place. It took amazing gains in the first place for people to have the motivation to launch the thematic ETF in the first place. So in this case, like crypto has reached the government level, but now that it's reached it, like the amount of insane gains that we had to have just for it to reach the level that the governments would care was so much that now that we've reached it, it's like feels like everything's just falling apart. You know, like price action doesn't really reflect what's potentially going on at a more fundamental level, you know, in the government. But I mean, I will say, like, no bill is better than a bad bill if the bad bill is going to introduce like long-term structural damage that we can't really easily unwind later on. You know, like if something happens where, you know, if Brian Armstrong or whoever feels like the bill in its current form is essentially like cutting the industry off its knees and protecting banks and stuff, yeah, like maybe there's a reason to fight back. You could argue that like maybe then you just go back to the table and figure things out, rather than make more of like a public outcry about it. Maybe that would have been something, but I don't know. I mean, ultimately, I think Brian is probably a really smart guy. I mean, I feel like he's probably a really smart guy, and I have a feeling that there are like he has some good points. Like it does on at least a cursory glance of it that I felt compelled to do because I knew this was going to be a question. Like I do feel like, yeah, like it leaves something to be desired. But at the end of the day, like I don't really care. Like I don't really care. It's not going to really affect anything, I don't think, in the markets in the short term. Long term, it seems like things are heading in the right direction. But I don't think any of what happens in that bill is going to have any effect on the markets. We even talked I feel like a few months ago we talked about this Clarity Act stuff before Brian Armstrong, like before he came out and was opposed to it. And what we talked about was like, you know, everyone in 2025, they only wanted to talk about the Clarity Act. And I think we speculated, dubiously, of course, like, hey, what if we get to 2026 and then it doesn't immediately pass? Like, you know, what could that lead? You know, that could be the narrative for the drop in the market, right? The narrative could be like, oh, what if the Clarity Act isn't actually going to pass? It almost seems like that actually played out, right? Like the market was trending higher. We went up to like 90 something K, 97, 98K. I don't know exactly where we went. And then all this fear about the Clarity Act started up. And then now, right, we're back down to 90K.
Damn it, Ben. I was promised a super cycle banana zone, and I would like to have that.
Look, man, there's always a chance those guys are right, but I've learned my lesson on that. So I think we have to take our lessons with us throughout the cycles. Better to assume it's not broken than to think it's going to be a super cycle.
Yeah, true.
Very true. Very true. Some really good contributions from the audience on this one as well. I just want to flag up a few of the comments here. The issue is if you pass bad legislation, you probably won't ever be able to change it. The Federal Reserve Act from 1913 is still law. and it'll probably never be revoked. I mean, I must say, yeah, I agree, and I think both of you guys touched on this in your answer. It's like, if it takes time, it takes time. But yeah, I mean, if we pass legislation that as Ben says, cuts crypto off at the knees, then it's that kind of marry in haste, regret at leisure deal, isn't it? We're then going to be hidebound by that legislation for God knows how long. And I guess there's a sense of urgency in the air because it's a midterm year. Everyone's expecting the Republicans to get to lose control of maybe both houses. And as we've discussed many times, crypto is now in so many people's minds such a partisan issue that if the Democrats control it, then we'll never get any legislation. But I mean, as both of you pointed out, these things take time, and I think we've just got to trust these guys to work through it. I do think Brian is right on this one. It's like if we some of these clauses that you mentioned, Rob, are just I don't think they're in the spirit of crypto. And again, a good comment here: centralization in any form will be the downfall of crypto. We welcomed it in like a Trojan horse, only to have manipulation and corruption come out at night and pillage our precious profits.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Some lovely illustration in there as well. I don't think. I think we should be very wary of thinking that legislation is going to solve everything, especially if especially if there are so many interested stakeholders, and of course, banks in particular. Many people would argue that crypto was built to work around banks in the first place, and now we're talking about them being able to custody it, and they don't want yield on stable coins. It's like, well, should we be welcoming these people into the city, so to speak? Okay, let's move on. There's a couple of other things I want to ask you guys. On a more negative note, in the past week, we've seen at least two recent scams. Eric Adams, the former mayor of New York City, appeared to launch a meme coin that was supposedly going to combat anti-Americanism, among other things. And then the liquidity pool was drained. We also had this more recently, Trove Markets, another scam there, another rug pull there. It seems like I was just looking at these. It seems as an industry we just can't help ourselves. So my question to you guys is: do you think we can ever hope to have crypto taken seriously if this sort of stuff just keeps happening, sort of almost week in, week out? Rob, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I just say look on the bright side. Well, meme coins are being pushed out like 1,000 per hour, I think, on pump.fun. And now we're down to 3. So not too bad. So if we're just, taking a look at that, I think we're winning, and hopefully it all gets out and everybody can just do their gambling on Kalshi and Polymarket, and we can actually grow up and invest money into really good projects. That's it.
Yeah. Amen. Ben, what about you? Can we hope for people to take crypto seriously when it's just sort of one scam after another?
I mean, I think Rob said it best. I do think Bitcoin should not be forced to bear the responsibility of all the meme coin crap. I feel like it's not like it's Bitcoin's fault but I do feel like crypto is, what's the common thing? It's like crypto itself isn't corrupt. It's just that it's attracted people who are corrupt that want to use it to make cash grabs. It's kind of like, it's like a lot of people think like all politicians are corrupt, but in reality, a lot of times just the political environment just attracts people who are that way. That doesn't mean all people are like that. It's just that's who it tends to more so attract. So I think that, I think the technology behind crypto is still great. I just think that it has attracted a lot of very corrupt people, and then for whatever reason that I will never fully be able to understand, other than maybe just saying that money was so loose, it has attracted people to launch scam after scam after scam, and for some reason people just keep falling for it, and I don't know why. I saw a post on Twitter. It's going to be Twitter for me. I can't. It's always Twitter. I saw a post on Twitter the other day where it said, this is where it all went wrong, and it tweeted, or it quote tweeted when the Melania coin launched. And it's like, I mean, when you literally have like the highest people in power launching meme coins, and then they just go to zero basically after their launch. Like, it almost exposes the industry for what it has become, and it was just sort of like a way to cash grab from those people that were too ignorant to realize that they were being scammed. So yeah, I mean, I think the industry can grow a lot. I think the way we do it is we just stop focusing, people collectively rebuke the meme coins and the people that launch them, and just start focusing on real projects. And if you can divert all this malinvestment away from this garbage and into things that are into projects that are actually with developers and are trying to make, build great, develop great technology, great ideas, then those people are incentivized to build. But how many people, I mean, I've seen a lot of people, I'm sure you guys have as well, a lot of people that used to build in crypto said they left crypto for AI because it's not like they were being rewarded in crypto. So if you want to, if the industry as a whole is to be taken more seriously, I think you have to, the participants, like we have to mature. We have to focus on what matters.
Yeah, it's one thing to say we're still in Wild West phase, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, you can put blame on the people who create these things. I mean, it's worth pointing out, I think, that Eric Adams, the former New York City mayor, as far as I know, like no one has gone after him about this coin that he lent his name to that appeared to rug its liquidity pool. I haven't. That story just seems to have gone quiet.
Well, okay, if the president of the United States can launch a meme coin, and it's down 94%, like if the president of the United States can do it, I mean, don't you think just a lot of other people are going to say that, hey, I can do it too, and nothing bad's going to happen? I'm not saying nothing bad won't ever happen, but that's kind of, I mean, I feel like they gave us the blueprint for what people were then going to do, and then people have been doing it for the last year.
Yeah. It's amazing. You can do that. You can create a meme coin, make a bunch of money, and screw people over. But if you actually do any kind of coding for a wallet, you get put in prison. For those. So, I mean, where is the justice there?
No, I mean, that's completely true. Completely true.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I guess, you can put you can still put a lot of blame on the people who buy these things in the first place. I mean, if you see a former mayor of New York City launching a coin to combat anti-Americanism, I mean, if you buy that, you're an idiot, aren't you? Like, it's, if you think you're going to make money out of that, if you see that as an investment, you need your head examined. So I guess you can pass on some of the blame to the idiots who buy it. It's just it's a shame that these things exist in the first place. Also, Hayden Davis, the guy behind I think it was the Malay meme coin, possibly involved with Melania as well. He's still free, walking free. He's not in jail as far as I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, still, I think there's still a lot of growing up for this industry to do. I want to ask you guys a bonus question now. We started off the stream talking about precious metals and how I think the bull run in those is we kind of agreed they're probably likely to continue for a while. So just assuming that you guys decided to change your channels tomorrow to focus exclusively on metals content and analysis, what would you change the names of your channels to in order to reflect that? So digital asset news and Into the Cryptoverse are both pivoting to precious metals content. What are they going to be called from here on out? Rob, can I go with you first?
Oh, no, I want to start with Ben. I think he's got a good one.
I mean, I would just say Into the Heavy Metalverse, right? Or the Heavy Metalverse. I don't know. I used to say, when I would talk about metals, I used to say like thanks for jumping back into the precious metalverse, and that just doesn't sound right. Like it sounds too soft. And then one time I was like, wait, these are heavy metals. I'll just say the Heavy Metalverse. That sounds a lot better.
Into the Heavy Metalverse. I like it. Rob, did you have any thoughts on your one?
I wouldn't. Well, I would just say like I wouldn't pivot to metals because metals, but I would pivot to AI. I think AI is going to be the big huge thing, and I would just go down that route. I wish some days I would have named my channel just my name, and then I could just do all these things. Because if I wanted to go to AI, I'd have to call myself Dane instead of Dan. So it'd be a little bit different.
Rob, you can change the name.
This is true. I can't
they just changed the name of their channel from
exactly. Or you know what? Like there's another guy, Clear Value Tax. I mean, he was all about tax, and now all he does is just talk about macroeconomics and the things that are going on. It's nothing to do with taxes. So yeah, did the same thing.
I mean,
is that
CoinBureau,
the guy who just reads it out in front, just wears like a shirt and tie and reads it out in front of a blank screen?
Yeah, that guy. He's good. He's really good.
I told you, guy. I feel like with your channel name, CoinBureau, like it's both applicable to crypto and like metals, because like gold coins, you know, like
Hey, gold coins, gold coin bureau.
Well, you know, we're toying with the idea. Maybe we rename it Bullion Bureau, or maybe we just call it Coin. You know?
Ah, that's a good one. Coin. Instead of saying the Facebook, you just go Facebook. The coin.
Yeah, exactly. Rob, we did. I was talking about this with some of the guys in the office. We did speculate if you wanted to just pivot into precious metals, you could just call yourself Analog Asset Bureau, Analog Asset News, I should say.
Analog Asset News. That's a good one. Analog assets.
And someone suggesting Ben any minute will rename his channel to Into the Chessverse.
Yeah, I sort of joked about doing that when I hit 1 million subscribers, but now that everyone's alt season dreams are officially dampened, it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, yes. There's always chess. I don't know. Yeah. Is there an intersection? Is that the sweet spot for a YouTube channel? The one that talks about precious metals and chess. Is that the intersection? Is that what's going to overtake Mr. Beast in a few years?
I always thought crypto and chess was the way to go. Just like, you know, pull up the crypto charts, do a live stream, play chess against people while crypto's doing its thing.
I feel the intersection between crypto and chess is where it's likely to be. Very good. Thank you for that, guys. I'm just seeing if we've got any particular questions that I'd pulled out. Someone's saying I miss Gary. I think that is the situation we're in a little bit. Another person, I've never really been a fan of Brian Armstrong, but when he explains his reasons, he's actually fighting on the right side. So I think, he has made some friends with this stance, I think. Okay, guys, please let Ben do the 6-7 meme thing. Ben, are you aware of what the 6-7 meme thing is?
Vaguely, because I have kids.
Right. I mean, I've heard about it. I don't know what.
I mean, I know they say it a lot. Other than that, I don't really know. Actually, my 6-year-old says it a lot, and my 9-year-old gets really annoyed at him for saying it.
Right. It's something that's already irritating younger generations as well.
Yeah, I guess so.
There we are. Okay. All right. Let's leave it there, guys. We are almost, we're 10 minutes away from the top of the hour, but we'll let people get on with their Thursdays. But Rob, Ben, it's been great to see you again. Thank you for all your insights today. I think we'll be back next week. Guy, Ben's channel next week, I believe.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Next week.
And yes, let's get Ben's channel to 1 million, and then hopefully he'll do the 6-7 meme for us then. But gents, lovely to see you. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be back with NFA Live next week, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.
Bye everyone.